Hi, my name is Jacob Collins Brown, and this is UKBF Stories, where we are telling the story of small businesses across the UK and shining a spotlight on their journey.
Hi, I'm Richard from UK Business Forums, and today I'm with Oyin, CEO and founder of Niyo Enterprises. Hello, Oyin.
Hi, it's lovely to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. So just to kick us off to start with, we'll come to the story of Niyo Enterprises, but for anybody who's not familiar with Niyo Enterprises, could just give us a high-level overview what Niyo is?
Yeah, so Niyo is a group of companies that looks to economically empower Black women to be producers of high-impact ecosystems. And so you might be thinking, what does that do? What does that mean? When I started kind of building Niyo as a brand, I did a lot of research to understand like what kind of companies that I want us to be similar to. I looked at Unilever, I looked at Ben & Jerry's, which is a brand that Unilever owns. I love Ben & Jerry's brand, and I love the way that they kind of present themselves. And I realized that I wanted us to build an ecosystem of companies that looks to economically empower Black women and to have us as like the producers of those ecosystems. So we are made up of 2 brands, soon to be 3 brands. It's going to be launching in a few months, which is exciting. One is called Niyo Network, which essentially runs, we like to call ourselves the #1 destination for Black female disruptors globally. So we run boot camps to get Black women into tech. We also have an e-commerce business, which is all focused on hair and beauty, selling like innovative hair and beauty products and equipment. And the third brand, we don't know what we're going to call it just yet, but essentially it's beauty, fashion and hair on the blockchain.
Definitely going to come back to the hair focus. I love your hair. I really love your hair.
Thank you.
When I was doing a bit of reading up before here, I saw you was born in Nigeria.
Yes.
Your education was in a boarding school.
Yes.
So can we sort of roll back to sort of that period of your life and the point when you come from Nigeria into UK? What that's that story?
Yeah, absolutely. So born and bred in Lagos, Nigeria, with a relatively middle class family. My parents didn't necessarily, well, it's debatable, but my parents really had to work hard to get where they got to. And my dad was this kind of really driven man, and he saw me as like, this kind of really smart child that he really wanted to nurture. So he took me to one of the top boarding schools in Nigeria, probably top 3 boarding schools actually in Nigeria. And I was there we called it grade 9 there. It's year 9, so I was there to year 9. And then suddenly I moved. Most times when you hear about people moving or your parents transporting you from one country to another, it's because you're naughty. But actually, my parents wanted to move me here because they found that I was incredibly intelligent for my age, and they really wanted me to get kind of started. Because one of the things with the Nigerian schooling system is that it's really good to like a high school, at the end of high school level. Once you start to go to tertiary education, the quality decreases a lot. So they wanted to kind of kick me off here quickly. But yeah, I moved quite abruptly. I think I finished grade 9, year 9, in Nigeria. In May, did my something called Cambridge Checkpoint, which was like a junior school exam before you can move on to senior school. And a week after, my dad was like, "You're going to the UK next week." And I said, "Why?" I was used to visiting here. Yeah. And my dad was like, we think that you should, move. So it was really abrupt. So I moved here. And then my mom was like, "You're starting school," because my mom was living here and my dad was living in Nigeria at the time. I was starting school. I literally got here on the Saturday. I was starting school on the Monday. I just finished school. And mind you, I was in boarding school. I didn't go home for holidays because of my exams. And my mom was like, "You're starting school on Monday. You're gonna start with this kind of like placeholder school for now, and you're gonna move to grammar school. You just have to do a series of exams." Now at the time I was like, "What's going on?"
That's quite a serious transition for such a young person.
I know. I don't like. I mean, I think my parents did thought they did things for the best. I mean, it ended up being for the best, but it was really quite difficult. So mind you, like my school in Nigeria, I knew everybody, was really close with most people. Everyone looked like me, and then coming here, I was like only black girl in the class. Yeah. So it was just a massive culture shock, massive contrast. And I then got demoted to grade 8 to year 8 because of my age. Because in Nigeria, it's not by your age, right, it's by your ability. When I was meant to be moving to year 9, right? Year 10, sorry. And then my mom wanted me to go to grammar school, but to do this exam. And I remember my mom was like, "You need to take like 3 buses to get to do this exam." And I just thought, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to this grammar school because I was used to not taking buses, just getting transported everywhere, walking in relatively short distances. So I left a paper blank.
It sounds like, from what you're telling me, that ultimately under all of it, your parents really ultimately just wanted the best for you, though. Yes. They saw something in you, and were really just pushing for that, to give you the best start, best education you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think my dad especially really was passionate about making sure we had the best education ever. And it wasn't just like within formal education, but even at home. Yeah. But yeah, so I didn't end up going to this grammar school. So I ended up in, like, at the time, one of the worst comprehensive schools in Birmingham, or even arguably the UK maybe. So contrasting from the best school in Nigeria, one of the best schools in Nigeria, to one of the worst schools. That was a really hard transition.
So how, you just mentioned a moment ago, you've gone from an environment in Nigeria where everything's normal, so to speak, to coming to an environment where you're in a classroom where you're the only black person in a new country, in a completely different type of school, where you're effectively a year behind where you was, not because of you, but because just the way the British system is for education. How did that affect you?
It affected me. I don't think I settled into the UK because this transition happened when I was 12, 13. I don't think I truly settled in the UK till I was about 19. So it took me about 7 years to get to a place where I felt settled. It affected me a lot because there was a lot of racism from kids. People would ask me questions like, and I've always been a very strong-willed woman. Yeah. So I was very strong-willed, and I really was passionate about where I came from. But people would laugh at my accent. And the thing is, I didn't even have the thickest Nigerian accent. Like, I probably sounded very similar to what I sound right now, but probably like just a lot more international. People would make jest of me. And I remember there was one day where I literally was like, I got out of character and I flipped in class, in my geography class. And I said, "You are not going to talk to me like that." And since then, people stopped making sly comments. But there was still that kind of covert microaggressions that were happening at a young age. But I never stopped. I never stopped believing in what I believe. I never stopped, going in and engaging and sharing about where I came from. Because the narrative that the kids had in this school about where I came from was totally different from the narrative that I lived. Like, they asked me about huts, and I don't actually see many huts. So I actually didn't see many huts, where I lived in Nigeria. So it was just interesting to see how, and I never saw myself as an African. I think when I came to the UK, that's when people were like, "You're African," and that was a strange concept to me. It's a bit like calling you a European. Yeah. You don't see yourself as a European first. You see yourself, as British or English first. I saw myself as Nigerian first. And there's just different narrative that I was still getting used to. And I really took my time, but I still remain bold, still remain confident in everything that I believe in, from my faith to my nationality, to everything. I stood on that. So yeah, that was that kind of school transition. But on top of that, there was a lot of challenges that were happening at home. I think that maybe I don't talk about this enough, but there was a lot of like immigration challenges. My mom was actually invited to come to the UK as a nurse during Tony Blair's reign. She rejected it at first, but then she accepted it later on. But then there was a lot of immigration rule changes, and it affected like a lot of the things in the family. From my mom being able to support the family to now my dad's Nigerian income supporting us. So we actually had to have food banks, and that was something that I was never used to. So yeah, it was an interesting and tough transition. I don't think I really accepted that
That must have also been hard during the period of time where your mum is in the UK working as a nurse, and your dad, and you're with your dad in Nigeria for a period of time before coming over. You came to the end of education, effectively high school. What was your first jobs like? You know, what did you do as your career when you started?
What's funny is, as I said earlier on about being quite bold, I was quite a political kid. I remember me and my dad would have debates of who I was going to be, what I was going to do when I grew up. And he really wanted me to be a doctor at first. And I was like, heck no, like, there's no way I'm going to become the president of Nigeria. That was literally what I used to always say. And so because of a lot of that kind of passion and all of the problems I was seeing here and the problems I had seen whilst living in Nigeria, problems of poverty, I decided to take a lot of social impact work. So I started volunteering. I literally did I actually have an award for it. Did like a little campaign in my community that I was living in, of like really raising awareness about sexual exploitation in that community in Birmingham, and I got like an unsung hero award for it at the age of 13, which is like, you know. But anyway, my first ever kind of job was working with a small charity, which I'm actually still a trustee in today. Just being like a campaign ambassador for youth, anything to do with that, empowering the youth. So that gave me the opportunity to work with companies like Alcohol Concern. I helped kind of launch the Dry January campaign when I was a lot younger. Did a lot of work lobbying in like large alcohol companies like Diageo and many other kind of like companies, just to kind of make sure that they had like good marketing practices. I did a lot of stuff in conjunction with the Advertising Standard Agency to make sure that it was like, you know, right marketing videos put out. So did a lot of those kind of like social impact work. And then because of immigration issues, I couldn't go straight to uni at 18. So I was doing this from 13 to 18. I got a scholarship.
Very young age to be getting involved in such high hitting.
I was very opinionated. I think I'm less opinionated now. I'm probably less political now, more probably business minded. But it's funny because 18, couldn't go to uni. I got a scholarship from Leeds University, but I didn't get the grades to get in. And my dad was still alive at this point, but my dad died literally not long after I finished sixth form to go into uni. And I remember having a conversation with my dad, and where we were all stuck because I couldn't go to uni because of immigration issues. I would have paid an international school fee even though I lived here for about 7 years before that time, or 6 years. But my dad was like, yeah, I'm going to pay for the school fees because I've always done this anyway. And I said, no, Dad, we're not. You're not paying for my school fees. My dad made me do a presentation of why it's better to have a gap year than go straight to university. I'm so glad that I negotiated with him about that, because my dad died in September of that year. If I had said yes to his offer, it would have been more terrible for us because there was no way we would have been able to afford paying for my international school fees.
I imagine also you would have been away at study.
Exactly, when all of that was happening. And this was sudden, by the way, like him passing away was completely sudden. So I kind of did this whole pitch about going to China for a few months, and then also working in a charity that I'd done a lot of like social impacts work for, and then just to find I was going to have a salary that was going to keep me. And my dad was, for some reason, said yes, but then he later said no to me going to China. I think he just wanted to say yes at first, just to just to encourage. But so yeah, I did a gap year, and then went straight into university. But again, still very active at university. Got involved with things like Enactors, which is basically like an entrepreneurial kind of social impact entrepreneurial kind of group of students across the world who just set up enterprise projects to solve the world's biggest problems under the SDGs. And then I took a year in industry, and that's where I would say I had my first corporate job in a FTSE 100 company. So here, there you go.
Wow. And so when you started working in one of these large companies, having gone from all that, both entrepreneurial projects and also quite a few years of campaigning and sort of championing change in so many areas, what was the role that you did in this FTSE company?
Yeah, so I was a program. The role title was a program controller. There was when I found out there was about 3,000 applicants for the project management internship, and 7 people got it, and I was one of 7. So I was really quite proud of that, and apparently I came like second in the process, the whole interview process. So I was really quite proud of that, because I think even though I was quite a bold child, I don't think I had much confidence in my ability. And I think I'm still working on that till today. I may appear to be confident, but I still think I'm still working on some of those things. But yeah, so I was program controlling, and I was basically program controlling between the company I was hired by and like a logistics company. And I was basically running a lot of the digital transformation work. Which is really interesting because I was not interested in digital at this time. And I was also not interested in global physical logistics. I was really confused of why they put me there. But I think they really wanted to challenge me. And the part of the business I was in was actually kind of like failing. And I think they were really trying to get like young people to kind of innovate it and bring solutions. So yeah, that was my role. I learned a lot. It was a shock, another culture shock. But I learned so much. It wasn't always the best experience, but I learned a lot, and I think that I added so much value to the company as well.
But you did experience racism. Basically. Yeah. There's no other way of putting it. You did experience some racism in that environment as sort of what effectively is your first major working.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah. So I remember I had a good relationship with the president of the Afro-Caribbean resource group in this company, and I was just talking about how can we have increase more diversity and inclusion. Just like how can we just bring the kind of Afro-Caribbean society alive? And the president really was passionate about the same thing, and we were like, do you know what? Why don't we talk to the VP of sales to kind of share some of the reasons why we want this and why there's no inclusion? And I was working in a lot of my kind of colleagues were Scandinavian and from like different Eastern European countries. And I had so many microaggressions to the extent where sometimes people, to ask me why is my hair so bushy, which I find really strange. And I remember we were speaking to the VP of sales, and I mentioned this, and I said, why don't we talk about a white woman's hair? Like, why is it that a white woman's hair is just seen as blonde and straight, and a black woman's hair is bushy and unattractive? Like, that's not okay. And then the VP of sales then was like, well, it's a bit like when my colleague came into work. This is how he put it. When my colleague came into work with an ugly bow tie, and everyone was like, "You've got an ugly bow tie on it. It's the same as your hair. You come into work, your hair." He likened my hair to an ugly bow tie, basically something like, you know. So I was just like, I think we were just so silent. Like we were like, we didn't know. I didn't know what to say. Like I froze. And so I said, this is coming from the leadership. There's no point being here. But at this point, I had been featured on the website as one of the most inspirational women at this company. So I'd done a lot of good stuff. I was featured in Nottingham Post for saving the company quite a lot of money in that kind of in the area of the business. But at the same time, I couldn't be myself, and I think I was also quite creative, and I don't think that was the environment that was going to nurture the fullness of me. So yeah.
And is that point where you decided to start your own business?
No, I didn't actually. This business journey it was all coincidental. Like as I said to you, my goal was to become the president of Nigeria. My goal was to go to university and study PPE. My dad disagreed highly with me doing that when we were negotiating when he was still alive, because he started to work in government. He was serving in government as like the Commissioner for Infrastructure and I think the Special Assistant for Infrastructure in his state in Nigeria, and he saw the reality of government, and he didn't want his child to have to go through the same thing.
Wise man.
Sorry.
Wise man.
So I was just like, he was like, you're not doing PPE because that's not going to get you anywhere. He wanted me to study computer science. I'm just like, that's interesting because that's kind of the field I'm in now. But we negotiated for me to just study economics and management. So I was like, yeah, this could be, I looked at like what like some of the politicians had studied. PPE was one of them. And then the next was like economics. And I was like, but Dad, like I can go into economics and management and get into big companies. So that was my compromise. But secretly, I was using that as a way of my way into politics. That was what I was going to do. But it's just happened all coincidentally and by research and doing a lot of research over the years that I realized that the way I was going to solve the problems that I was really passionate about wasn't going to be directly by politics. And I just listening to a lot of politicians. They are not the problem solvers. They are, from what I've, based upon my study, they're not necessarily the problem solvers. They're just the policy initiators. They're just the policy writers. So if I'm going to solve problems, I have to solve problems by being the builder of solutions. So, yeah, it's all just happened organically. I didn't plan to go into business whatsoever.
So the first, when you made that step, the first one was, your first step was focused on hair, which I find interesting. So when you, is there any link between sort of what you experienced and bow tie, and your first step into entrepreneurialism yourself, or setting up hair technology?
Yeah, interesting. So it's funny because when I first started doing hair because of a problem again. When I moved to the UK and my mom was paying a lot of money compared to what I was used to paying in Nigeria for doing my sister's hair and my hair, I was like, Mom, don't worry. Like, I've learned this from Nigeria. Like, we have like house stewards, and this house steward was like, became like an auntie. And in fact, she's still like my auntie till today. She's like my second mom. And she had taught me, how to like braid hair and stuff. So I started braiding hair. My mom was like, your hair, this is really good. And my mom always encourages me. She printed business cards for me, even though I was like, this is so strange. And I didn't want to do her friend's hair, but she was like, you should, it's really, like, you're really good. So I started just at the age of 14. No one knew my age at this time. That was outside of my family members and my family friends. And then I grew my clientele to 100 people. At this point, I still didn't see it as a business because I was just like, I'm just doing hair and I'm loving it. And I'm making good money at the side.
So you started this during your teens, whilst you were still going through education, going into university, working with charities. And you still had this sort of a look following along the line throughout that whole period of time.
Literally, absolutely. So grew my clientele, but I was actually planning to stop doing hair at university. Then one day I was going through like one of my DSLR camera, and I'm looking at the pictures that I'd done over the years, and I posted it on my personal Instagram, like, oh, look at how neat the partings are. Don't you just love a good parting? And all my friends at university were like, I cannot believe that you've been hiding this from us. Like, what do you mean? You do hair? Then everybody was like, come and do my braids, come and do my hair. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then my photographer friend, God bless her soul, was like, I need to feature you on my blog. And I was like, what? But at this point, there was no brand. It was just Oyin doing hair. And then she said, well, you need to find your brand name. And I called it Hair by Oyin at the time. So she featured me on her blog, and I just scaled to about 300 clients across the Midlands, by the way, by the age of 21, I believe, whilst still working at this 4100 company, and also studying and everything like that. But whilst I was doing hair during those transitional years, because our hair takes a long time to do, you have conversations. And a lot of the conversations I will be having with some of the women will be about, how can I be empowered? How can I do better with my life? How can I make more money? And I end up giving people business ideas and business advice. And they'll come back after their appointment asking me for business advice that I just didn't have the capacity to give. And I said, let's run an event all about this. And we would have a journal where you would note all of these things down. So we had our first event, and we had 80 people turn up. We had lots of great who sponsored in kind. And then people were like, we want more. Then we did it next year. We had 150. Then we did it the next year. We had 350. And we had different themes per year. And before I would pick the theme, I would always pray, because I'm a Christian. And that theme would kind of naturally become the theme for the year for the project or the passion projects I was running. I didn't call it that at the time. It was just a thing. And so, that's kind of how it all fizzled out. And it was the latest major one, which was in 2019 or 2020? 2020, February 2020, that caused us to kind of pivot into tech, because again, that's where we are here.
And that's where Niyo Enterprises came about, presumably.
Yeah. Yes, it did. I mean, I registered a company in 2018 after a lot of the demand for, I don't know, whatever it was, like economic empowerment is what I would call it, increased, and I couldn't do it on my own. And my best friend now, who's our CEO, Chief Operating Officer, just felt sorry for me and helped me, like here and there. And then now she's the CEO of the company. So, yeah. And
from there, you've got Black Coder.
Yes.
And then you've got Black Disruptors.
Yeah.
If we took Coder first,
yes,
because that's something that we have a company. We employ coders.
Yeah.
So what's the asking a leading question here? But what's the focus on there? The motivation, and what's some of the if you have sort of statistics and data around, the emphasis on diversity in programming software sector.
Yeah, absolutely. So Black Coder came about as a result of our third ever large event, which had 350 women from across Europe, Black women specifically from across Europe. And the theme of that event was the connectivity of technology to creativity, hair and beauty at the time. And we had a coding class, and there was about 50 women present in that coding class. But there was such a need from them. And at this time, I didn't realize, I'd done a lot of research as I was doing my master's in development economics, still on this path of becoming an economist first, and I'm finally somehow get into politics. But did a lot of research, and I realized actually a lot of the jobs that the community had built. So at this point, we were like 1,000 people on our database. I realized that actually a lot of their jobs were going to be automated. So I needed to make them the producers of the automation. So that was all I did. But then I'd gone into deeper research, and according to BCS, British Computer Society, something like less than 1% of Black women are in tech, which is heavily underrepresented. So we really just wanted to focus in on that. And also the fact that tech does economically empower, it pays well. So that was the kind of like the need. Not just economically empower the women, but economically empower their families and multiple other generations. So now I'm so proud to say, and I literally smile when I think about this. We have upskilled, I can't tell you Black Code and Black Disruptor, but in total we've upskilled 300 women so far since 2020.
That's impressive.
And a lot of them have gone into places like the London Stock Exchange, UBS, KPMG, some exciting startups like Zappi. You know, like it's an awesome thing to do. You're not just running a business, but you're actually changing people's lives. I literally get some students message me at least once every month, saying thank you for changing my life. Yeah, and it's not like they got in because they're Black. They got in because they were good.
Yeah. And I think that's an important aspect for it, because that it's not I'm remembering a conversation I had with a really inspirational lady, Shalom, a few weeks ago.
Yes.
And talking to her, it's about, you know, the empowerment isn't about handouts. It's about actually empowering, giving the tools, the knowledge. Yes, she used the term handing on the baton. So that's, that is what I picked up as really important about what you do. And what you mentioned there about, because women in general, particularly in tech and programming, software development, as you say, sort of writing the automation side of things, are underrepresented anyway. I know that as a general for the industry. But when you look at, so give or take, the population of the UK specifically, so 8% is Black, give or take. And then when you say that only 1% are in the industry itself, so you've already got an issue, which is then even further compounded itself to lead to such a small percentage.
Yeah, exactly. I think, but also we actually was having a conversation with my colleagues yesterday, like talking about, okay, we are the minority, but one of the things that the narratives I share is that we're not the minority. We're the minority in the UK, but we're the majority in the world. When we look at things, and we're becoming more of a borderless society because of globalization, so we need to shift away from just thinking about things from a nation perspective. So if you think about it, like, we are still heavily represented based upon being a majority across the globe. That's a challenge. But also the 80-20 principle. If 20% of the people of the population are they're mostly affected, poverty, mostly affected by not being skilled, it's going to affect the 80%, if you see what I'm saying. So even if we were to kind of scale it down to the UK, so it's really important that we create a fair society that everyone can play equally.
So, whilst I've got you here, are you running your own or have a keen interest in small business? Then UKBF is here for you. Visit ukbf.co.uk and become part of our vibrant community to meet other like-minded business owners and tap into a wealth of expertise and experience to help your business thrive. Now, back to the story.
Yeah.
And then Disruptors is going on to the next level. So you're empowering and developing Black women to be programmers. What does Disruptors do?
Yeah, so we started Black Coder, and we do this, by the way, we do this in collaboration with Coding Black Females, which is another awesome organization that gets Black women into tech. But Black Disruptor happened because, again, the community said, well, we don't all want to be coders. We don't all want to be software engineers. Is there any other areas in tech that we can take part in? And so we launched Black Disruptors, which is Black Disruptors Career, and Black disruptors, founders. The career boot camps are for other tech careers. So if you want to go into VR and AR, so launch things on the metaverse, that's a great place to go and learn. Yeah. Yeah, it is awesome. I think that's my favorite boot camp, if I'm being honest. And some of our ladies have created some amazing stuff, which is just like mind blowing. And then, and if you want to get into data and AI, we teach that. If you want to, we're exploring robotics, which is super exciting. We're exploring blockchain, and because I'm building a blockchain software, we're exploring UX and UI, because a lot of our community actually want to go into UX UI. So every other area of tech that we can think of, and even fintech, and even within blockchain, decentralized finance, in decentralized autonomous organizations, those are the things that we're really, really kind of exploring to see how can we make as many Black women as possible globally to be equipped with the tech skills needed, because automation is going to affect us the most if we don't upskill.
With picking up on two of those subjects then, just to sidetrack for a moment, where do you see the metaverse evolving?
Where or when?
I'd go where. So where do you see? Because I asked the question because I was at an event a few weeks ago, and the room was polar split between I see a future here and this is bad, evil, like horror. What is this? The environment about? So I see it quite interesting in that an environment is being created where you can conduct commerce, interact worldwide with brands, you're shopping, you can do things in the metaverse that then impact whether it's a delivery, a purchase, business in the real world. I find it interesting, but I'm a couple of years older than you, and so they're a little bit old school. So I find it a little bit unnerving. But put in my own personal sort of, what to do, how do I think of it, and looking at the younger generation, how the younger generation are evolving and adapting into a virtual environment and living.
Do you know what? I think every technology advancement comes with its strong danger. What the kind of technology revolution, Web 2, you call it. We're in Web 2 at the moment. We're transitioning into Web 3. There's still a lot of danger that's attached to it. Change requires boldness. Change requires a level of faith. So I'm not going to say that the metaverse is going to be the best thing since sliced bread. No, that's not where I stand. I think it's going to solve some really big problems that humans now have because of the last phase of technology advancement that we've had. Humans have had issues with their data, data privacy. And we're now tired of that. Now we want to take it to the next level where we own things. So the metaverse is not just about what you've just explained, or Web3, I would say. It's not just about the metaverse. Web3 is also about individual ownership, democratizing ownership of resources, and having equal playing field as well. I do think that it is a bit of I think that if we don't build tools and we don't build solutions that reduces the risks of this disconnecting our society, we are kind of doomed. But I have connected with a lot of people who are trying to build solutions to do with making sure that we can make things as safe as we can in this new technology and advancement. What do I think? What's my opinion? I don't know, because it's not all evolved yet. I mean, I went to a Web3 summit a few weeks ago in Denver. I met everyone that you needed to know that was building the Web3 space. And everyone's figuring it out. So if you are scared of it, come in and share your thoughts, because it's going to influence how it's going to be built. I think if we are scared and don't say anything, we can't complain when it happens. and we weren't part of the revolution. So I'm making sure that I'm really engaged in the Web3 space right now. I mean, meeting the CEO of Binance, who's creating the Gnosis chain, like, and talking to him about some of the things that he needs to think about, thinking about how we need to make sure that we're not causing inequality in the Web3 space, because that's the reason why Web3 exists. People are tired of inequality and they want to have fair engagement. But yeah, I could talk about the nuances of Web3 all day, but that's my opinion. It's still evolving, and I can't give my opinion of it right now. Like, it's something that's happening. But let's make sure that we're engaged in the conversation and putting our best foot forward, or else when the solution comes, let's not complain.
Where's Niyo Enterprises going next?
The next thing, we have a goal to upskill as many Black women as possible globally as we can. We have this bold goal. I mean, we've upskilled 300 so far. We have this bold goal of upskilling up to 1 million in the next 5 years. That's our bold goal for Niyo Network specifically, in all manner of tech. Literally, we want to build tech geniuses to make people like producers of that's really powerful. Like, I was saying this to my business coach. I think it's really powerful because people who were underrepresented are gonna be players, massive players, and influential people in the space, which is awesome. Then another next step is that, as I said, I'm making sure that I'm engaging in the Web3 ecosystem. So we're building beauty, hair, and fashion on the blockchain, making sure that we're not excluding people who are in the non-crypto space or the non-Web3 space. Make sure that we're including them. Yeah, pretty much, and just continue to grow, continue to stay authentic to who we are, and continue to impact lives. Having a quadruple bottom line of people, profit, purpose, and planet.
You just, if whoever's watching this wasn't listening carefully, you just brushed very briefly in a passing comment that you were speaking to your business coach.
Okay, cool.
So I'd love to pick up on that, because that's something that is quite a sort of a theme that's mentioned a few times within UK business forums.
Yeah.
And as UK business forums, we've sort of done a whole section about mentoring and coaching. Tell us a bit about your business coach.
Yes.
And how important it has been to you to have a coach. What role do they play in helping you drive your business? So
I'm a Christian, and for people who are listening that might be Christian, you might be able to recognize, but there's a person in the Bible called Samuel. Samuel was a coach for David, I believe, for David. And Samuel was able or mentor for David, and same with Esther in the Bible as well. She had a coach, Mordecai, who was able to kind of push her to who she's meant to be. So I see that coach, I see my coach as someone, or not just my coach, but my multiple council of coaches and mentors and advisors, not just in business, but in my spiritual life and in all manner of my life, that pushed me into who I'm meant to be. So, because no man is an island. Who I am today is not because I'm great. Who I am today is because I've listened to advice and I've submitted myself to counsel, right? So my business coach practically for me today has paid so much into how I think, most importantly. Many entrepreneurs undermine, the quality of their mindsets and linking it to their business. You don't actually realize how much your mindset plays to your business. I mentor quite a lot of business women, right? And a lot of things that I realized that causes some to be successful and some to not be as successful is mindset. My business coach has really helped my mindset think big. So her motto, her name is Daniela Ginas. The name of her brand is She's the Boss, for anyone who's interested. So her motto is think big, take action, keep pushing. I remember when I first started my relationship with her, I wasn't paying her. It was through a program called Innovate to Succeed. And I remember going to her with a charity, basically, at the time, because as we were talking, it was really just a charity thing. And I was sharing my goals, and she said, that is too small. And I thought, wow, she's really challenging my mindset. And now I think, so big. So it's really important to have accountability and people who have gone before you. And she had done a journey that I was just about to embark in. So, pretty much like it's really important to have somebody who can push you. I can see beyond where you are right now and see who you're meant to be to really push you in business and also in all aspects of life. Every man needs accountability.
I was just about to say accountability is a key thing for it. You're sort of they hold you to what you say you're going to do as well. So that's fantastic. Is there any role models that you have that you aspire to with, or just give you that mental push and challenge that you look to in, well, whether it's in business, life?
Yeah, so role models that I think about, I mean, do you know what's funny? Because I don't feel like I have many role models. I feel like in the past when people ask me this question, I've lied pretty much. Because you just want to think about something cool. The reason why I've noticed that I don't really have many role models, I do have some, I'll tell you they are, it's because I need to know them and the quality of their life. And a lot of people that mention role models talk about celebrities. You don't really know them. You just see what they want you to see. So I don't have many role models because of that. But my role models, I can tell you now, are my dad, who's now passed away, God bless his soul. And he keeps me going. My late grandma as well. My late grandma was really a tenacious woman. Like she wasn't like the most entrepreneurial or whatever. She was just a simple woman who, with every opportunity that she had, she used to encourage and preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. Literally, that was all she did. Like, that's all she did. And I remember going back to one of my grandparents' properties, and one of her friends came up to me and was like, I miss your grandma. I remember she actually like sat me down and was like, sharing the good news of the Bible with me. So she, like, just her tenaciousness really, really inspires me. Another role model for me, again, is Joseph in the Bible, because he was in a prison for multiple years, but he still maintained an integral character. So those are my three main role models. I don't have many because I don't know many people to the depth where I can say, actually, I want to be like you. But if I was to, rebuttal myself and say, actually, who do I aspire to be like in the business scene? Someone that I've been noticing and I've been really studying his life is Steve Bartlett. I think he's got a really good character. He's also a good business person. He's got a good balance, because most times you see someone who's really good at business, but you're not sure about their character. They might not be really good people, or they might not have much integrity, because I have dealt with a lot of really good business people who are rich, but their integrity stinks, or they don't have the best character. You can't have a conversation with them. They're not fair. From what I've seen from Steve Bartlett, he seems to have that kind of good balance. And from a female, one of the people that I really admire from her, like her writings and just how she is a woman called Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who used to be the president of the World Bank. And he used to also be the finance minister of Nigeria. But those are, I'll say, kind of people I look at, study their lives and think, I might pick up some things there, here and there. So yeah, those.
I think the family link's important, and I so aligned and believe in similar in what you're saying about when you look, whether it's on social media and you look in the press, you only ever see very much what people want you to see. Yeah. You see their lives, you see their successes through a filter.
Yes.
And correct. That's relevant in so many. I saw a fantastic, it was a Dove advert actually on TV last night. Mm-hmm. And I saw it straight away, and I didn't even know it was an advert for soap. And it was talking about how social media is impacting young girls in particular, because the pressure it's putting on them. But that, that's so important, but it also leads on to so many other aspects of social media. Yeah. Steve Bartlett, I think he's brought a brilliant change to Dragon's Den. Mm-hmm. I'll be watching it tonight. But his line of questioning is fresh and unique.
authentic. I think he's an authentic leader. Yeah.
The I feel like I'm already going to know the answer to this question, having spoken to you for today now.
Yeah.
But community is what. So when I originally set up or got UK Business Forums up and going, the reason behind it was I was sat at the table in my kitchen. Started my own business. My daughter was like 6 months old. I couldn't hardly pay many of the bills. It was an uphill struggle, and it was lonely. Even though I was living with my wife, it was just there. So UK Business Forum started to create that community aspect because it wasn't. I've already heard you mention several times as we've been talking about how various aspects of what I would say communities played an important role in supporting you. Talk about some parts where it has, because I already know it has been from what you've said.
Do you know what? I think if we look at it vertically and horizontally, in the sense that I've had different communities that have supported me. I think I'm like one of those people that really just maximizes my life. I like to maximize my life. I think my dad taught me that, and the fact that my dad died so suddenly made me realize you've got to maximize your life because you don't know when you're gonna go, and you don't know. You need to make sure that you're going to the right place, type of thing. So the communities that have supported me, I think, from living in Nigeria, having a community that grew like that actually like raised me. I wasn't just raised by my parents. I was raised by a whole community. You know, that was awesome. I take my friendships seriously, and I'm very intentional about who I keep as my friends, because it really shapes who I am. Because there's a saying that you are like the 3 people that you hang out with, or something like that. That's the one thing. I think the mentors thing, super important, because as a leader, you probably don't have many people that tell you about yourself. You don't. So having accountability that can correct you in love is really important. I think that's the second thing. I think another thing as well, from the community that I've built, listening to them, listen to what they want, and responding also teaches me a lot about myself and what I'm doing well, what I need to improve, and also I have this massive dream to replicate myself. That sounds really like vain, but what I mean is replicate myself as a leader. I want to build other leaders. So interacting with women that we're working with really helps me to understand how do I empower them to be the best leader that they can be. So when they step into, maybe your company, for example, when they step into one of our partner companies, they are leading with power, and not just with power, but they're leading with peace as well. How do I do that? So that's how I guess like communities have influenced me. I think I'm also a woman of faith, so I'm a Christian, as I've said many times. So like my faith and the community of faith has really, really supported in how I think, how I approach things, how to react to certain things, how to do how to do things with fairness, how to make sure that everybody is, fairly treated as I would want to be treated, and things like that. And just principles as well, just understanding just really, important principles for success. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's great. And there's a synergy there in that you've just touched on it, but Niyo is a community that you're building up of connecting people together. Yeah. And there's a lot of empowerment within that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because it scales without me. Like, people are connecting with each other, really empowering one another. There's like peer mentoring that goes on without my knowledge. It's awesome. It multiplies.
Now, you've done this from a young age, as I've learned today. But talking about personal branding in a sense. So and utilising social media, how important do you feel it is both for you in what you do, but I think businesses in generally, that the leader, the voice, the person who's driving it forward is out there and seen and building their personal brand?
Absolutely. There's a TED talk called The Danger of a Single Story by Chimamanda Adichie. And one of the things that TED talk taught me is important to share many stories, because it shapes the reality of our world. So if you're a business that's doing awesome stuff and you're not sharing and you're not making the awesome stuff that you're doing visible, you're not contributing to the diversity of stories that exist. Now, that might seem very trivial and very small, but, the fact that, let's just go back to my hair thing and the ugly bow tie thing. The fact that that senior person said that was probably because of a lack of many stories. If you if you actually link and think deeper, he's probably just seen one story all his life. But actually, the beauty of social media is that I can share my story, and I have my own stage, but I use it for good and to share important things. So, personal brand is important for that, number one, and also for making history. Like, you literally told me just before the interview about all of the research that you had done, but you wouldn't have got all of that data if I did not document my stories. So I'm actually writing my own page in history books by documenting on social media, regardless of how awesome or the good things and the bad things, the ups and the downs. I need to make sure I'm documenting that and sharing it. So yeah, that's just my approach to things.
I would add to that in that by reading those stories, you're enriching your own life and enlightenment as well. We have some fascinating stories, stories shared in our office. We have a lot of conversations. In the corner of my eye, I see Jacob over there holding a camera and talking. But we've over a coffee many times just had some, fantastic conversations about the Bible, about cultures, about life, and it's and whether it's about business, whether it's about the individual, you're sharing enlightenment about the business, the products, the person, the stories. I love it. As an individual, I love just consuming all that knowledge and just learning. So sort of bringing the story, it's been a fascinating story, bringing it sort of winding it down now. What's you mentor and you help a lot of women.
Yes.
What are the three common or sort of key pieces of advice, if you used to just pick three, that you think help the most, or what you would share the most?
I think, as I said earlier on, mindset. Even regardless of whether you want to go into business or you want to be a strong woman in career, your mindset is the key thing. If you don't think you can do it, I mean, there's a Descartes quote, I think, therefore I am. Interesting, right? How can it be that you think, therefore you are?
It's along there's another quote, and it's been attributed to a number of different people, but I think well, anyway, it says whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Like, you are right based upon your mindset, basically. So it shows you the power of the mind. So you can essentially tell your mind what to do. So your mindset is so important. I think that's the one thing. I think the second thing is hard work, but hard work smart. Don't just work hard. Make sure that you're working hard towards a smart goal. That's the second thing. And I think the third thing as well is the right people, having the right people, whether it be the right networks, whether it be, and I think that's why, UK Business Forums is so important, because it's a community of people supporting one another. having the right people is super key. Key influencers, key partners, key friends, key people to help you get to where you need to get to and keep you accountable.
That's brilliant. And what would you like when your time on this plane comes to an end, and wherever we go afterwards? What would you like to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for a woman who stood on what she believes. Full stop. I think that's what I've always wanted to be. Who just stood for what she believes, and she impacted many people's lives, changed people's lives.
I'm pretty confident you will.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed watching this. It's a fascinating story. Please like and subscribe, and there'll be many more stories to come. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to help spread the stories of small businesses across the UK. Have you got a story to share? Reach out to us on ukbf.co.uk. And you never know, you could be the next UKBF story.